Grandpa Silas sits by the fire glow with a voice like gravel and tales that grow. He fought the gray, he fought the blue, said the bullets sang, but they missed me too. Oh, Grandpa Silas, stories he weaves, a living history no one believes. From Cannon's Roar to Jesse James to Buffalo Bill, calling out his name. He met Wild West legends in a smoky saloon, said Buffalo Bill taught me to shoot at noon. Claimed he stole a horse from Jesse's hand, rode it like the devil through outlaw land. He's got scars and a crooked grin, says the truth.
Well, howdy there. Welcome on in, you young'uns. Just come on right on in, alright? Let me see here. What we got? Oh, yeah, anyway. And, yeah, Warhorse needs to sit and watch himself when he's behind this camera. Alright, that's right, how you say it. Camera? Okay. No young whippersnappers. Now let me tell you something here, young'uns. I'm always happy to have everybody here, you know. And yes, I know I look pretty darn good for my age. I've been around the block, and let me tell you, no, I don't drink that blood or any of that crap. You know, and I mean, just because I look so good for my age, it's because I eat good victuals. Just so you know, okay? Alright, now I think if I remember right, hey, Warhorse, now wasn't it where I was supposed to be talking about on old Patton, General Patton? Yeah, okay. Now, so, here's the thing. Now, before I get into my story, I want to say thank you for coming back. And Warhorse sat there and told me to tell y'all that y'all need, you know, alligators, no. Algorithms. Or something of that nature. All these newfangled gadgets and everything else that they got here. Anyway, I've been trying to learn this fancy gizmo stuff, but you hit the likey, the thumbs up thing. Yeah. And all that kind of helps with the algorithms, and also, you know, it helps when you engage with some comments. You know, you could just say hi, say howdy. I would appreciate it very much. All right. Now, you know, we're going to get into the story. See, now this is I can't. You know, it's hard to get the people that used to come and listen. You know, they used to stay outside or inside and stuff. You know, and youngins would listen, but now this is the only way I can do it, because Warhorse tells me that they done skedaddled off over into Timbuktu counties and states and all this, all because of that pandemic stuff back when that was really hitting and all that. I still say those jokers that pulled that junk, that crap, they ought to have been smacked and tarred and feathered and rolled out on the rail like they did in the old days. That's right. Now, I want to tell you about Patton now. Now, Patton, I met him, it was all back on the day of, when storming the Normandy beach. I remember we just hit the beach, and that gizmo thing that came flying down, and we got out of that thing and splashing in the water. There was shells and whistles and boomings, and some of them getting all blowed up and all that kind of stuff and what have you. And me and my man, now I remember we had around close to about, I think it was around 50, somewhere around in there anyway. But all I remembered was it ended up got whittled down to about 20. I do remember that. But anyway, sit there and I remember we got up a little ways. I think we must have got about, it must have been around 600 yards or something like that. And we ended up around one of the bunkers, the gun thing there that they had up there on the beachhead. I remember we sit there and we took that, and boy, I tell you what, you talking about a hot one, boy. That was really hot because we just had a hard time trying to get up there and take that thing out. But once we did, I ain't gonna spend a bunch of long time telling you all the little details. That's not what this is about. But anyway, we're sitting over and some of us are licking our wounds and, and the medics, coming over and tending to us. And there was one young feller, I felt sorry for him. He got his leg shot off from around by the knee down. Poor feller, he was sitting there crying for his mama. I think a lot of people were about ready crying for their mama, But anyway, then I think we're there for, I won't swear to it now, but I think it was something like 6 hours or something like that. And before we was having to move on up and out and going more further inland. So, anyway, next thing you know, don't you give me those googly eyes, I'm telling you. You don't give me them, right? Alright. Now, here's what happened. I'm sitting over there, looking at you. What was that? I was looking at my weapon, my carbine, sitting there looking at it, checking it over, and everything, and making sure that it was clean and all that, and then next thing you know, I hear this gravelly voice, now to me back then, even though I was a sergeant, it still reminded me of the grave, boy, like a tombstone or something, with teeth, when, to figure what it would look like if Mr. Death come and started grinning at you and talking to you, yeah. Well, I remember where old Patton, and that's who it was, come over and says, "Well, how's it going, boys?" I'm sitting there looking at him, and I says, I got up and I saluted him, and because if I wouldn't, I'd have got a chewing out like you wouldn't have believed. But then I wasn't about to take no duff off of nobody. I don't care if he was a 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star general, or if it was the president of the U.S. I wouldn't have took it. But me personally, actually I wouldn't have let none of the men under me at that time to take any duff from anybody, especially after the Hades we went through, and that we will be end up going further into. Well, I saluted him and I told him, I said, "You're doing all right, sir." And he said, "You're fine. You did a great job. I was sitting there just waiting for him to say something else. And then he turns away from me and goes over to that soldier that had his leg blowed off from the knee down. And I remember that because the boy was crying and, calling for his mama. Now, I remember old Iron Pants. I want to call them Tombstone Pants or something, but he goes over there and he looks at that boy and says, "What are you crying about?" He just stands up when your betters are there. Well, he said, when an officer is present. I'm thinking, are you crazy? You're a nut. Stupid fool. Well, needless to say, the boy couldn't get up, of course. Well, next thing you know, old General Patton gets down on one knee over and smacks that boy in the face. Now that was all it took right there. I could have got court-martialed. I got up over and I grabbed that general. Some of his men was fixing to pull me off, and some of the other young men said there, "Stop them." I sit there and I grabbed that General Patton by the collar and drug him up, and I sit there and I told him, I said, "Listen here, sir. That young man had just had his leg blowed off. And he's in a lot of pain, he's hurting, and he's scared. But that boy did a lot more fighting than you ever did, you old crazy coot. Call yourself an officer and a general, and you act like you're stupid, you idiot. I said, I ain't afeard of you. I said, I don't care if you court-martial me. We could hang you, I don't care. I said, boy, I said, I ain't gonna call you sir until you earned it. That's what I told him, yeah. You know what? He starts to laugh. The dang fool starts to laughing. And so next thing you know, he's over. You're a good soldier. He says, I like that. You got spirit, fire, love sticks up for your men. And he'll fight and go through hell itself. That's the way he said it. He'll go through hell itself to defeat the enemy. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, boy, he is a crazy feller. What did I ever get myself mixed in up in this man's army when you have to have a general that's loony Tony? Crazier than a Bessie bug. I swear. You know, but anyway, next thing you know, here's some guy around that following him around with a camera and sitting there and takes a picture of us. But I didn't smile, but he was grinning from ear to ear. Now, I don't know whatever happened to that picture, but if I ever find it, I'll show it to you. If by the help with the help of Warhorse here, all right. But if we find it, we'll post it here. You know, if not, well, you know. But I don't know what happened. You know, I don't. See, there's a lot of stuff that you young folks, and some of you, a few older ones, but whatever age you are, let me tell you this. Those history books leaves a lot out. And some of them kind of smooth things over. I'm not kidding, and they don't tell the whole thing, and they make it sound like another event happened. But what I'm telling you happened. And, you know, now, one thing is true in the history books, you know, they rightly named him Iron Pants. Of course, now, I would have named him something else. You know what I mean? Now, I ain't gonna go into no whole much longer story and everything, but I'm gonna tell you in the next story that I want to share that happened to me was a meeting at William H. Bonney. You know, you know him as Billy the Kid. Me and him had a little gun bout out there in the streets down there in Kansas. Yep. And see, what was the name of that place? I don't know. I'll just say Dodge City or somewhere. I don't know. It was in Kansas. I do remember that. But I'll tell you about him, and maybe if time permits, shares a few more other stories. Now, but let me say this. Now, if you want to have a good, long life, and when you get up in your years still looking good, you know, and live long as I have and looking good, Well, then what you need to do is have some good victuals. You know, and I can share that, you know, if you want me to show you what kind of good victuals to be eating if you want to live a long time. Well, what person don't, right? But then there's a time when you come or you get to that one point you just went too many miles and you're ready to go home. You're just tired. You know, but meantime, until then, you still got some fire and you got a kick in your steps, you know? Yeah. So, alright, until next time, let me just say I appreciate y'all coming in and sitting a spell and listening to old Grandpa Silas. And don't you ever call me Si. I'm gonna smack you. Only that's reserved for my friends. Only my closest friends and family can sit there and get by with calling me Si. So, let me just say, again, I appreciate you coming in and sitting a spell and listening to old Grandpa, okay? So now, come back on again and you're all welcome. Now, y'all come back now. You hear?